It has been brought up more than anything that we've done.
Now, is that an exaggeration, or do you
Oh,
have
is it
the numbers?
exaggeration?
No, I'm asking if you have the numbers.
Have you voted on it once?
I'm asking you a question.
Yes, we voted on it once. We've talked about it in work meetings, and it comes back again. Okay?
So we've talked about the AED ordinance at least that many times. We've talked about Collector Street fencing at least 3 times.
Right.
We talked about animals that many more.
We talked about chickens about 6 times.
I'm not defending myself against animals and everything else. It's this article.
Well, you made the statement that this has been brought up more than any other subject. And
that's what
the
I'm
other
trying to
councilmen
quantify.
were just simply saying that it.
Well, I'd like to know.
Excuse me.
Oh, sure.
It also appears that in response to that there are other events that have occupied more time than that. So, yes, we've talked about it more than once.
Yes, we have, haven't we? We're talking about it again tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that it's more than anything else the council has ever talked about.
Well, let me ask you a question on this one. Who writes these motions or resolutions? Because I don't ever see them until they come to us. Who writes them?
Members of the council will write them from time to time.
They just write them and then they change them?
Do you not want a response? Was that?
Well, I want a response from you.
That's pretty
Sure, go ahead.
condescending.
Mayor, I've got a
You
serious
asked
issue
who writes
here
motions
that,
and
I need
resolutions.
to
They're written from
address
multiple
at
sources.
this.
The staff writes resolution and ordinances. We have members of our council from time to time will bring up ideas and concepts that will produce those. They're written from multiple sources.
Okay, so who wrote the one that would put you as the CEO?
No one.
Would you like
No,
to be,
it just appeared out of nowhere?
would you like
I'm
to
not.
be specific about that?
I'm sorry. I'm honestly surprised. Where am I referred to as the CEO in this in an ordinance?
Did I keep one for me? I hope I did. Mary Ann, can I borrow yours for a minute?
While he's doing that, Mayor, point of order. I'd like to ask Mr. Geilman, in our form of government, my understanding is that the city manager technically is the chief operating officer of the city. Would that be correct, Mr. Geilman?
Actually, there are a number of different titles that are out there. In the city employee handbook, it specifically, that was adopted by the city council, it specifically says city manager is the chief executive officer of the city.
Mm-hmm.
In my contract, it specifically says that I'm the chief administrative officer of the city.
Okay.
So there are different places that different terminologies are used.
So if you go on page 2, it says right here that this committee duly consider the expansive responsibilities of the mayor above and beyond the service of an individual council members as chief executive officer of the city, together with the officials, city representation to boards, committees, and other public events. Now, in the second one that just came out, that's taken off there. Who took that off?
And this is a draft that you're reading?
You got the draft. Did you not read it?
I don't have it with me right now, no, so I don't have an eidetic memory. I can't tell you what's on that.
Have we debated it and passed it yet?
Well, that's the thing. You bring these things out and you want to debate them, and then you put them, and then the next time they're not there.
Well, let me give you an excellent example.
Oh, yeah.
Let me give you an excellent example.
Who wrote it?
The electronic meeting notice, which we just passed, okay, we passed on April 2nd. That was actually, as you know, that was the second time that we passed that, as you may be aware. The first time that we passed that, we were given a number of choices by the city legal staff, and it was Mr. Butters that made the primary motion on that. Do you know how that first came about?
You know, Chuck, I'm lost. I don't even know what you're talking about.
What I'm explaining is how things evolve in the legislation, for example, that we did regarding the electronic notice and comparing it to this. In this particular case, I went to our city attorney and discussed the electronic meeting notice and the possibility as to how it existed.
How does this apply to me?
Give me a minute, and I'll tell you,
Okay.
and I'll close the loop for you, or
Okay,
I'll
great.
attempt to close the loop for you. And so, in that particular case, I went to our city attorney and discussed it, and he took a look at it and said that yes, that we were different than other cities, and that we might need to make some amendments to allow us the option to do the electronic meeting, because at the time, the previous ordinance said that we had to give a 2-week notice. So he got together, did some things and brought it forward. We had choices as we went through the motion. As you may recall, we had 2 to 3 choices in 3 different areas on that motion. And we selected those choices. We discussed and debated those choices and selected them. And then, after that was all done, Mr. Wall then came back and indicated that there might be a couple other questions, and so we went through that again. What Mr. Seataller is...
May I respond to the question as well?
Sure, go ahead, you can.
I'm actually asking the mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
So let me just
Let me finish up
my
and
comment.
then certainly.
I don't even know what you're talking about, Chuck.
And what the point that I'm trying to make is that in the process of even passing a motion, before it's even passed, there's an evolution sometimes that we go through. You saw the same thing on the Santorini Village motion, for example.
I'm asking you
So-
the evolution. Who wrote this?
I'd like to respond
And
to
then
that.
who wrote the second one?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Newton. Mr.
Thank you,
Seataller.
Mayor. I'm not going to go back and forth and ask you a question outright. I'm just going to make a statement. Those of us that have seen the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, what you see in that original draft is a document that's written, well thought out, well considered, etc., and many, many changes scratched onto it, words substituted, new words placed in their place, line crossed out, etc., etc. That's why it's called a draft. We have before us this evening, a little bit later on the agenda, a draft resolution for a compensation committee to be able to sit and to be able to take in information related to employee pay, their particular positions, comparative pay, and benefits consideration from year to year. And that's in the draft that we have today to look over. Now, I'm the one who drafted that, and I redrafted it, and I'm glad everyone's sitting down because what I'm holding here is a red line copy of even what we have in the packet today. I've made some changes to it, and when we get to talking about that, I'm going to pass out a clean copy and a red line copy that shows what changes I've made. That's the evolutionary progressive process of drafting a bill, a resolution, a motion, whatever it might be. There should be no indignation that something changed in a draft phase. That's why it's a draft. I am the one who asked that the council reports
That
be
answer
moved
your
forward.
question?
Yeah, it answers my question. But I'd still like to know, is Mark in charge of writing drafts?
If he has something he would like to bring forward to the council, just like if you have a matter of business to bring forward to the
So
council.
are you saying you didn't know anything about the draft?
I didn't know about the draft until it was delivered to me.
And then you passed it out and he didn't have it, right?
That is correct.
And so you didn't know anything about the draft?
Mayor, I've got a
No one's
serious
talking
issue
about
here
it.
that I need
What do you mean
to
didn't know
address
anything
at
about
this
it?
time.
I'm not sure
Well,
what
we
you're
have
getting
a
at.
draft, but where did it come from?
Well, we
Oh,
just
I
were
was
told.
aware that
It
Councilman
came from
Seataller wrote
my
it when we
computer.
got it.
How did you know?
Fine. I am
Because
the one
mayor
who asked
mentioned-
that the council
I
reports.
thought the mayor mentioned it to us when he handed it out.
Is there a point to this line of
Yeah,
questioning?
the point is, I think it brings up some questioning. We've had some people bring up the Grandma Effect Act because they're saying some people are acting in a way that's not appropriate.
Is this an accusation?
No, I'm just saying that, Mr. Mark.
Then why are you just saying that like you just wrote the newspaper article
I didn't just
talking
write the
about
newspaper article.
whispers,
The
talking
whispers?
about people talking about this, talking about the members of our city leadership wanting to change the form of government? Why do you say these things before you think?
I didn't say that before I thought. Were you around when...
Oh, you
Mr.
thought
Osmond-
up that?
Were you around when Mr. Osmond ran for
Oh,
mayor?
let me think what year that was. Would you please remind me? Was that 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was.
Well, by golly,
By golly,
this is
things change,
April
don't they?
2013, and you're talking about whispers from the past. Are you haunted?
Yeah, I'm haunted. I'm haunted by it because of the fact that a lot of people say, do you see it changing? And I said, I wouldn't like to see it change, and if you note that in there, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't vote for it.
Well, good.
Okay.
You
But
wouldn't vote
that's
for
where
something
people-
that was an issue 3 years ago.
What's that?
You wouldn't vote for something that was raised as an issue 3 years ago.
People still ask, are you going to go out
Is it a
there
current
and have a
issue?
full-time mayor and city council?
Then why did you imply that current sitting elected officials are part of this conspiracy?
Did I imply that?
Yes,
Yes.
you did.
Oh, I did?
And
Okay.
in response to that, I would like to add
A
something.
reasonable person that would read that article would make that connection.
I still think you're putting the chicken in charge of the hen house if you're letting
You mean a fox in charge of the hen house? Is
that.
that
I
what you
don't
meant?
care who it is. But anyway, if you're deciding on your own raises and what's going to be paid, is this the last that's going to come up, or is there just parts of it that are going to come
What
up?
we're proposing in this draft, as well as the Second Amendment, that we would in fact be dismissed from that process.
Right, and that's what I still.
So we wouldn't be
What
involved
we're
in.
proposing, because I don't get it till the day before of what we're proposing. It comes up the day before so that not a lot of people can see it. So what's the deal with that?
Well, wait a minute. The day before, it was put in the packet. Mark's previous one was passed out, 4 weeks ago, 2 council meetings ago, and we haven't discussed it yet. And we discussed
Mayor, I've got a
it then,
serious issue
and
here that
You had the same thing with your nomination to the Planning Commission
I'd
last
like
month.
to. Yeah,
It's the same thing. We talk about it.
I'd like to ask for a
Fine, and
definition of the
if we
question
need
and what
to,
the pertinence
whatever.
is.
Purpose of what?
What is the purpose, what is the point of your question? Whether or not I can draft a resolution?
No.
Whether or not Mr.
No.
Butters can
I
draft
guess-
a resolution?
I guess what I'm saying is, I think I'm left out of the loop on what everything's going on here.
Is that an accusation?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and do you have proof?
Well, I didn't know about this thing that just came out.
Well, it was publicly noticed
Sure.
prior to our
Did
meeting.
anyone's, this thing that just came out is as in your public reprimand?
What's that?
This thing that just came out, this thing I just read? Your public reprimand?
No.
You didn't know about that?
The compensation committee.
Compensation committee thing.
Oh, well then you need to read what's
Okay.
sent out to you.
Well, yeah, it came out 24 hours before a change.
And that
But
is
who
legal by
decided-
law?
Who decided the change?
Oh.
Just you?
I made the request.
You made the
You
request.
can make the request too. You have that much power because you get paid that much.
That's right. I get paid.
More than us.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging it. Now, I would like to know, while we're discussing this, if Mr. Short will accept the terms of this reprimand and make the public apology at this point in time.
I don't think so. I think people need to read what I put out there
A
and decide
lot
for
of people
themselves.
have.
Oh, okay. They have.
Well, it's distributed to 37,000 locations. I suspect there have been some number of people who have read it.
I think so too.
And I'm curious if you want to answer the question or not. Have you taken the increases over the last 2 years
Sure I have.
to get the
Sure I have.
retirement benefit? Okay.
And is retirement considered a benefit?
It is, and it was considered a benefit by the legislature when we took
Yeah,
over.
that's
So you
interesting
do
what
say
you
in
wrote
your
in the
article.
paper.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Please, go ahead. You have it.
As city council members, we do get a small compensation, but I would never expect to be paid a full salary or benefits for part-time service. Full salary can be debated, but that is a benefit that you have raised your salary 3 times now to qualify for.
Doesn't look good.
So I'd like at least that much of an apology on the public
That I
record.
raised my salary?
No, that you're accusing us.
You're a hypocrite.
Right.
I like to be a hypocrite.
You like to be a
I
hypocrite?
like to be one.
So we can record that in the minutes?
Well, you already are.
Well, I guess we are. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the table right now, which appears that if in fact it passes, would eliminate the first motion of having this entered as a public reprimand, and also asking.
Mr. Mayor, I think that the city attorney seems anxious to.
Mayor, yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. The proper way to, under the chart of motion practice that you were given a year and a half ago, and none of you look at, and I only look at it when there's a question. when there's a motion and a second, then the next step is to debate the motion. So rather than delve into whether or not a substitute motion to allow debate and a second is the proper step, my advice is follow your chart of motion practice, which says motion, second, and then debate, which you've now done.
Okay.
And then when the debate's finished, you call for a vote.
Then that being the case, thank you very much. I appreciate
Sorry that I didn't make
clarification.
that more clear.
That being the case, the motion that was presented was for this to be entered into the record with the conditions that are associated with that motion. It was seconded by, I believe, Mr. Barnes.
Yep.
We have that motion on the table, and in order to make sure that we are getting this motion properly recorded, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Councilmember Seeteller?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Newton?
Yes.
Councilmember Butters?
No.
Councilmember Short?
No.
The motion passes with a 3-2 vote.
Marianne, do you have the copy of this for the minutes?